I've watched the world change, but have we changed inside? I've lived through wars and weddings, cassette tapes and streaming apps, handwritten letters and FaceTime calls. I've watched presidents come and go, stores close down, buildings go up and families break apart and rebuild again. I've seen the moon landing on a black and white TV and now carry a device in my pocket that knows more than any teacher I ever had. The world has changed, drastically, rapidly, and in ways none of us could have imagined when we were children riding bikes until the streetlights came on. And yet, with all the progress we've made, I find myself wondering, did we change too? I'm 75 now. I don't run as fast and my hands shake a little when I pour my coffee in the morning. But my mind? It's still wide awake, still trying to make sense of this strange, beautiful, and chaotic life. I sit in my old chair by the window, watching the sun cast long shadows on the driveway, and I think about how different things are out there. People move faster, life feels louder, everyone's chasing something, success, attention, escape. But there's a heaviness in the air that wasn't always there. Maybe you feel it too. When I was young, we talked to each other more. Not just texted or reacted, we talked. I knew my neighbor's dog's name, and he knew when my dad got laid off. We didn't have much, but we had each other. These days, I hear about loneliness epidemics, mental health crises, and people scrolling through curated versions of life while their own slips quietly by. Don't get me wrong, there's beauty in today's world. Medicine saves lives. Voices long silenced are now heard, and some kids are smarter at 10 than I was at 30. But with all this progress, I keep asking myself the same question. Did our hearts grow as fast as our machines? Did we become wiser? Or just more connected? This isn't a lecture, and I'm no philosopher. I'm just an old man who's seen enough to know that not all change is growth, and not all stillness is stuck. So today, I want to talk to you. Not at you, but to you. I want to look back at the decades I've lived through, and I want us to wonder together, not just about how far we've come, but about who we've become. Because the world has changed. That's a fact. But what about us? Are we still carrying the same kindness we once learned as kids? Do we still make room for slowness, for quiet, for each other? Or have we let the noise take over? These are the questions I've been thinking about. And I hope, in the time we spend together here, they might become your questions too. There was a time, not too long ago really, when a letter was something sacred. We took our time. We sat down at the table, pen in hand, and thought about what we wanted to say. Every word mattered. Every sentence carried weight. The ink on the page wasn't just a message, it was a piece of the person. And when you got a letter, you didn't just read it. You held it. You smelled the paper. You kept it in a drawer or a shoebox because it meant something. Now the buzz in your pocket barely gets your attention. Text messages come in by the dozens. Emails pile up, unread. Notifications flash across your screen like blinking lights on a highway. We're connected, yes, but are we really connecting? I remember waiting for letters from friends during the war, or birthday cards from my sister who lived 2 states away. That wait, that longing, taught you something. It made you patient. It made the message sweeter when it finally arrived. Today we can get a reply in seconds, and somehow it feels emptier than a silence that once stretched across weeks. We don't talk much anymore. We react, we tap, we scroll, we skim. And the irony is, even though we can say anything at any time, most of us don't say what we truly feel. We've learned how to be efficient, but not how to be real. I wonder what we've lost in the name of speed. I think about the times my wife and I would exchange notes when we were young. Just simple words. I miss you. Be safe. Come. Home soon. And now I see people side by side, each looking at their own screen. Typing, posting, updating, but not necessarily sharing. Somewhere along the line, the heartbeat of our communication was replaced with a ping. Faster isn't always better. Sometimes slower means deeper. Sometimes waiting means caring. The question is, can we find a way back to that? Not by ditching technology, but by remembering how to let it serve us instead of letting it shape us. Because in the rush to connect with the world, we may have forgotten how to connect with ourselves and with each other. My childhood home had a front porch. Nothing fancy, just a few creaky boards, 2 rocking chairs, and the best view in the world, our street. On summer evenings, we'd sit out there with a glass of lemonade or iced tea. The neighbors would wave as they walked by. Sometimes they'd stop to chat, catch up, or just sit a while. Kids rode bikes in the street. Dogs barked. People knew each other. That porch wasn't just part of the house. It was a bridge to community, to connection, to something slower and more human. You didn't need to make an appointment to talk to someone. You just looked up and waved. Now, front porches are gone, replaced by garages and back patios and fences tall enough to block out the world. Even when porches exist, they're often empty. People are inside, behind locked doors, behind screens, behind walls that no one sees but everyone feels. And I don't think we realized when it happened. We traded openness for privacy. We replaced spontaneity with scheduling. We chose control over connection. And sure, there are reasons: crime, noise, busyness, the demands of modern life. But the result? Many of us feel more isolated than ever before. We live next to people whose names we don't know. We pass each other in hallways, elevators, streets, with heads down and hearts closed. I miss that front porch. Not just mine, but ours. The one we used to share as a society, where you could knock on someone's door without it being weird. Where borrowing a cup of sugar wasn't a text, it was a walk next door. Where people looked out for each other, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Community isn't just a neighborhood. It's a way of living. It's a willingness to be seen and to see others. And maybe the reason so many people feel invisible today is because we stopped looking up. I believe we can bring the porch back, not the wood and the nails, but the spirit of it. Every time we greet someone kindly, every time we take the time to listen, to ask how someone's doing and mean it, every time we put the phone down and really see the person in front of us. That's the porch I want to rebuild. Not just for me, for all of us. Because without it, we're not just losing connection. We're losing the part of ourselves that remembers how to belong. There was a time when life was about we. Families were bigger, multi-generational even. You didn't move away from home unless you had to. You built your life around others, not in spite of them. The dinner table was where problems were talked through, not avoided. And when someone struggled, lost a job, lost a spouse, people showed up. With food, with time, with presence. Today, we celebrate the self more than ever. Be your own boss. Chase your dreams. Protect your energy. Set your boundaries. Don't owe anyone anything. And I get it. I do. It's empowering to take control of your own story. It's brave to choose a different path. I admire the strength of people who build a life on their own terms. But I also see the other side. The shadow that comes with all this self-reliance. I see the young man who's afraid to ask for help because he doesn't want to look weak. I see the woman who's exhausted from doing everything herself, but feels like admitting it would make her a failure. I see elderly folks like me, whose kids are across the country, their lives too busy to slow down. We say we're free, but are we? Or have we just built bigger cages and told ourselves they're castles? Being strong doesn't mean being alone. Independence isn't supposed to cost you your support system. And somewhere along the way, we confused solitude with strength and silence with self-care. We've glorified the grind, praised the hustle, and turned vulnerability into something to be avoided. But at 75, let me tell you something. You can be wildly successful by the world's standards and still lie awake at night wondering why it all feels hollow. You can achieve every goal you set and still ache for someone to simply sit beside you without saying a word. We are social beings. That hasn't changed. It won't. We're wired to connect, to lean on each other, to matter to one another. And while I admire the resilience this world requires of people today, I worry that in seeking freedom, we've forgotten the strength in community, in shared burdens, in being seen. The rise of individualism may have taught us how to stand alone, But let's not forget how to stand together. Everywhere you look, there's evidence of progress. Faster cars, smarter phones, longer lifespans, more options, more knowledge, more convenience than we've ever had before. And don't get me wrong, these things have value. They've saved lives, opened doors, made the world smaller and more accessible. But deep down, I can't help but wonder, are we truly better for it? I remember when having less forced us to be resourceful. When you fixed what was broken instead of throwing it away. When you looked someone in the eye instead of a screen. When accomplishments were personal, not performative. We weren't trying to impress strangers on the internet. We were just trying to get by and hopefully leave something better behind. Now everything is measured. Steps, likes, followers, productivity. There's a scoreboard for everything, and a constant pressure to optimize your life. But what does that really mean? We say we're more advanced. And yet anxiety, depression, and loneliness are at record highs. We can land on the moon but can't seem to sit through dinner without checking our phones. We have access to every great mind in history, and we use it to argue with strangers or doom scroll through negativity. Sometimes it feels like we're sprinting towards something, but no one knows what. We're upgrading everything except our capacity to feel, to slow down, to be. Progress should lift us, make us more human, not less. But if we're not careful, it becomes a performance, a constant need to appear better, without the work of becoming better. We curate our lives like a gallery but struggle to feel content behind the frame. There's this illusion that we're doing great because the metrics say so, but metrics don't measure meaning. They don't tell you if someone is kind, if they're honest, if they're happy. You can't quantify peace of mind or the comfort of being held. Progress isn't a bad thing, but it's not the only thing. And it certainly isn't the final thing. Because the truth is, for all the advancements we've made, the greatest human achievements still lie in how we treat each other, how we love, how we show up in the small moments. That's the kind of progress that never gets old. I still remember the first time I watched someone cry and felt like their pain was my own. I must have been 7 or 8. A classmate lost his dog. I didn't know what to say, but I sat next to him at lunch, didn't talk much, just stayed there. That's when I learned that sometimes empathy isn't about finding the right words, it's about showing up and feeling with someone. Today, I scroll through the news on a phone that fits in my hand, and I see tragedy after tragedy. Floods, shootings, illness, injustice. And I see the comments, blame, arguments, anger, jokes. Sometimes I wonder if the world's gotten crueler, or if we've just become numb. It's not that people don't care. I believe they do, deeply. But when you're bombarded with suffering, day after day, it's hard to keep your heart soft. So instead we swipe. We like a post about a funeral. We comment with a sad emoji. We move on. Empathy used to live in the body, in your chest when someone wept, in your stomach when a friend got bad news. Now it lives behind glass screens, filtered and flattened. We've learned to witness pain from a distance, but distance dulls the urgency. It dulls the responsibility. We can raise money for strangers across the globe with a few clicks, yet sometimes forget to check in on the neighbor who lost his wife last month. We send virtual hugs but avoid awkward conversations. We know the headlines but not the hurt right in front of us. That's not because we're bad people. It's because the world is loud, and empathy requires silence, stillness, presence, and those are rare commodities now, but I believe it's still in us, this sacred human ability to care. I've seen it in nurses who sit with patients long after their shift ends, in teens who teach their grandparents how to use Zoom so they don't feel so alone, in strangers who step up during disasters, bringing blankets, food, hope. We need more of that, more being with than reacting to, because the future may be digital, but the soul will always be analog, and no amount of progress can replace the warmth of one person reaching for another with no agenda but compassion. Let's not forget how to feel. Let's not lose our ability to cry when someone else is hurting, or to celebrate their joy as if it were our own. That's the kind of connection that holds humanity together, and it's too precious to surrender. Sometimes late at night I sit with old photos, my children when they were young, my wife in her 20s, standing barefoot in the kitchen, flour on her nose, laughing, friends who are now gone, some too soon, some with peace. And I wonder, what will they remember of me when I'm gone? Will it be the job I worked, the car I drove, the house I paid off? Or will it be the way I showed up for the hard conversations, the way I tucked them in with stories, the way I said, "I'm proud of you," when it mattered most? It's a strange thing, this business of being remembered, because when we're young we think legacy is about big things, achievements, awards, milestones. But now, with most of my life behind me, I see legacy as a quiet trail we leave behind in other people's hearts. The way we treated the waitress when the food was late, the time we forgave when we didn't have to, the way we made someone feel, seen in a room full of noise. That's what lingers. That's what gets passed down. I look at the world now, and I worry we're building legacies we don't truly want. A legacy of speed, of distraction, of living through screens instead of stories, of being so busy capturing the moment we forget to live it. I think about my grandchildren and their children one day. What kind of stories will they tell about our time? Will they say we were wise? That we listened? That we cared more about people than performance? Or will they say we chased convenience and forgot community? The truth is, we are writing our legacy right now. With every choice, every word, every silence, we don't need to be famous to leave something behind. We just need to be present, to show up for the people who count on us, to leave this world a little gentler than we found it. And maybe that's the point, not to be remembered by millions, but to be remembered well by the few who knew us best. Because in the end, our legacy isn't what we build. It's how we love. It's how we made people feel. And if they can say we lived with heart, that we made them feel less alone in this big, complicated world, then I think we did all right. The world around me doesn't look anything like the one I grew up in. The buildings are taller, the music is louder, the clothes, the conversations, even the way we eat, it's all different now. I don't say that with bitterness, just observation. Change is part of the deal when you stick around this long. But for all the transformations I've witnessed, there are things that haven't changed. Not really. Pain still hurts. Love still heals. A kind word still softens the hardest day. A hand on your shoulder still means, I'm here. At 75, I've come to believe that while the world reinvents itself again and again, the human heart holds steady. Underneath the technology and the trends, beneath the noise and the neon, we're still just people trying to find our way, trying to matter, trying to be loved, trying to love back. You could change the setting, move the story from a dusty back road in 1955 to a bustling city street in 2025, and the core remains. We're born, we stumble, we learn, we lose, we carry on. Grief still feels like an empty room that echoes. Joy still feels like sunlight after weeks of rain. Regret still comes at night. And forgiveness? It still tastes like freedom, every single time. We think we've changed so much because the world looks different. But the truth is, the most important, things haven't moved an inch. They've just been buried under more layers. What lasts is connection. Not Wi-Fi, but real, soul-level connection. What lasts is how we treat each other. What lasts is what we do when no one is watching. The world may praise the loud, the rich, the shiny, but history is carried by the quiet acts of grace that go unposted, unrecorded, but not unnoticed. What lasts is that feeling of home, wherever you find it, whoever helps you build it. And maybe, after all this change, what we need isn't something new, but something true. A return, a remembering. Because trends fade, fame fades, even memory fades. But love lingers. So here we are, you and me, having walked through decades of change. Some of it thrilling, some of it confusing, and some of it quietly heartbreaking. I've watched the world flip itself inside out and reinvent what it means to live, to work, to speak, to connect. I've seen miracles of medicine and horrors of war, moments of breathtaking kindness and seasons of despair. Through it all, I kept asking, has all this change made us better? Or just different? I don't have a perfect answer. But I do know this. No matter how advanced we become, no matter how fast the world spins, the soul still longs for the same things: meaning, belonging, peace, truth, and love. We can't slow the march of progress. We shouldn't want to. But we can pause long enough to ask whether we're still holding on to the parts of ourselves that matter most. Whether we're making space in our lives for the things that last beyond the latest update or invention. If you're younger than me, and most of you probably are, my hope is that you'll hear something in these words that slows you down just enough to feel, to reflect, to remember that your worth isn't in your speed, your followers, your wealth, or your appearance. It's in your kindness, your courage, your humanity. The world will keep changing. It always has. But maybe, just maybe, we don't have to chase every change. Maybe we can choose which changes we welcome and which ones we resist. Maybe we can protect what's sacred even as we move forward. At 75, I don't need everything to make sense anymore. I just want to live the rest of my days with eyes open and heart soft. I want to keep learning, keep listening, keep loving, and I hope wherever you are in life you'll do the same, because the world will change again tomorrow. But who we choose to be within it, that part is still ours, and that's where the real hope lives.